Welcome to If the Public Only Knew, the show that pulls back the curtain on what it really takes to build and lead a business. Host Gary Cinderbrandt sits down with some of today's most dynamic CEOs, founders, and leaders to dig into their origin stories, hard-earned lessons, and the missteps that nearly derailed it all. These are unfiltered, no-hype conversations designed to inspire, challenge, and fuel your own journey. Now here's your host, Gary Cinderbrandt.
Welcome back to If the Public Only Knew. I'm your host, Gary Cinderbrandt. Of late, we've been exploring themes revolving around leadership. And the more I dig into it, the more I come to understand that this is a core principle in how we all evolve as a culture. Imagine for a minute if we had no leaders. Imagine for a minute if we had no one that could explain to us how to open our minds and think in terms that might be a little more expansive than we've done in the past, where we can kind of lead ourselves before we try and lead others. Well, our guest today is an expert in that area, and I am thrilled to welcome George Pesansky. George, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gary. It's such a pleasure to be here.
George is the author of an upcoming book coming out next month on Superperformance. And also his company is known as My Blended Learning. And George, you've been at this leadership game for a long time. And I say game with all due respect. Yeah. What were you doing before you became this version of yourself?
You know, I really believe that this is a journey, not a destination. And I think it's really been an evolution. I can go back to, being a very young man in school and just wanting to be the captain of the team, wanting to rise to being the supervisor in, my summer job. Those opportunities to influence the circumstances of I'm working in or the people around me, I think were always there. And seeking out the opportunities to be able to grow and develop those skills was really what my entire career has been about.
How did you get into it? What were you doing before this?
Well, kind of a unique path. I started off in the military after college. Really had a wonderful opportunity during my college experience to participate in an ROTC program and became completely inspired by the opportunity to be a leader in the military and thoroughly enjoyed that. And in my upcoming book, I kind of tell the story of the moment I decided that I wouldn't make a career in the military, but still leave with so many incredible, valuable lessons. When I recognized that the opportunity to really exhibit leadership and to help people reach their full potential was not something that my particular career path was going to provide, I decided to leave. And I went to work in the industrial gas business, went through a military recruiter that helped me find this really wonderful opportunity in Northwestern Ohio. Got exposed to the automobile industry, got exposed to all of these quality programs, improvement programs, really learned so much, and ended up working in New Jersey for a glue company. And the glue company basically, provides obviously adhesives to, manufacturing. And if you think about manufacturing, really there's not a material, a product, a part that doesn't have glue, at least in the packaging. So I got, a good decade of experience visiting manufacturing facilities all over the world, helping them with their process, and ultimately developed a internal consulting organization that was really about trying to drive productivity and quality and cost savings. And that was the birth of My Blended Learning, where I got out on my own and started to do those same things, both for that company I worked for, but also for a whole host of clients in a lot of different industries.
Take me back a little bit. What branch of the military did you go through ROTC with in college?
Yeah, the Army.
Okay. And when you came out, you were commissioned as a second lieutenant?
Yeah, as coming out of at graduation, got my gold bar.
Nice. And what was your specialty?
My butter bar.
Your butter bar. What was your specialty? What was your MOS?
Yeah, so I was lacking any foresight. I got a degree in chemistry when I was in
Okay.
college, and that guaranteed me assignment to the chemical corps.
Okay.
So I really wanted to be an infantry officer or an armor officer, and I ended up being assigned as a chemical officer. And through a twist of fate that I would have never expected or would have saw coming, I ended up becoming an armor officer in the field and ended up, responsible for a tank platoon in a division cavalry squadron. And on my first day on the job, I didn't even know kind of what direction the tank went in.
Wow.
When the gun tube was over the back deck, I actually thought that was forward. So,
Is that when you look for a sergeant with a lot of grizzle and you
well,
say, please help?
exactly, yeah, and that was so formative, in my leadership journey because I lacked any technical knowledge whatsoever. And what I had to offer was not going to be telling people what to do or even how to do it, but I understood why we had to do things. And I understood how we needed to contribute to, the mission and the larger unit and the training we had to create. And it really allowed me to become that servant leader. It really helped me be able to understand what it took to listen, learn, and understand from the people around you. And I was really blessed to have that opportunity because it taught me that as a leader, you shouldn't matter. If you've developed an effective team, if you've really put in place systems, if you really developed and trained people and allowed them to be empowered and take responsibility, if you're not there on a given Tuesday afternoon, should make no difference whatsoever.
So how many years did we spend in the Army?
About three or so on active duty, and then a couple of stints in the reserves. Both
And
planned and unplanned.
okay. And what was your rank when you retired?
First lieutenant.
Okay. All right. So you didn't pursue the military career, but the military obviously had some appeal to you as it
Yes,
related to possibly stimulating or waking up what the future you would be doing, that you knew there
absolutely.
was concepts around leadership. So then you move into private industry from there.
Yes,
And it sounds like some of the things you brought with you from the Army, which really stimulated your thinking about
yeah.
what might be possible out there, you started to integrate into a position where that was lacking completely, I would guess, before. There was probably nobody like you that was trying to set up this kind of internal consulting thing. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, the first experience I had was, such a test of these leadership characteristics, and I remember, being offered this position to basically run this air separation plant, which, is a facility that makes cryogenic gases, which again, I knew nothing about, and had, a whole fleet of trucks and all kinds of resources and complexity and difficulty with really no experience at all. And after I'd accepted the job and after I'd actually made the move, and my new manager met me there on the first day, he kind of then shared, and I hope he ends up listening to this because he's still such a dear friend. He kind of shared with me that, oh, by the way, there potentially could be some movement toward unionizing in this facility. And you really need to kind of manage the workforce because they're rather unhappy and they're having these conversations about that. And not that that was a bad thing or a good thing, but it really represented the discontent of this group that I was now leading. And then he left and went back to Chicago. So, so it was a really wonderful experience to again listen, learn, understand, empowering people, putting in place systems to help them succeed, really propping them up and giving them the space to fail, but also the encouragement to succeed. And that really was the formula that is super performance, that I try to outline in the book, that is all about helping you find, kind of what is the root cause of your success and how do you grow that to really reach that potential. And those experiences are exactly what shaped me.
I love the evolution of this, and I find it not to be a common theme, but I do find it to be a prevalent theme in that you had something out in front of you that wasn't completely defined, but you kind of knew you were going in the right direction. And the more you kind of worked your way down, the better it felt, the more you learned. And
Yeah.
you thought to yourself, well, how did I get to here? And you look back and you go, well, let's see, the Army was good. And then I did this, this, and this. Those all really felt good. It almost seems like whatever business it was didn't matter as much as you developing those skills and being self-aware. So as you were developing them and you knew you were enjoying them and you were onto something, when does the light bulb go off to jump from a W-2 paycheck to becoming an entrepreneur and having to build something literally from scratch, which,
Yeah.
we both know, is not a comfortable spot to be. What happened with the
No.
light bulb and how'd you get it started?
Yeah, no, it was, I'm actually a rather risk adverse person by nature. And I have found myself in high risk situations over and over again. So I kind of wonder if my subconscious kind of pushing me toward these things. But in this particular case, it was, basically the sale of an organization and, the transfer of ownership of a very large company and all of the change that takes place with that. And it kind of represented this moment where what I was doing was not going to continue in the way that I was doing it. And much like my experience in the military, of getting a taste of being a tank platoon leader and leading soldiers in the field and the, camaraderie and reward that brought. And recognizing that my mission as a chemical weapons officer was also important, but was not going to be that experience. It was going to be a very different future experience. And deciding I wanted to be a leader and I wanted to go out and continue to have those opportunities. The same thing happened in the moment where I decided to go out on my own, that I loved solving problems. I loved helping people develop and become expert problem solvers. And the idea of going back and kind of working a 9 to 5, not doing that, was way scarier than deciding maybe I may not make the mortgage payment this month, but 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, I think I can. So
Okay.
let's try to make it happen.
So I want to zero in on one word because I
Yeah,
think, and you really expressed it properly, the concept of you don't consider yourself a person that likes to take quote unquote risk.
yeah,
Do you ever think about what the definition of risk is?
yeah. I think my definition of it is, the probability and the size of the consequence. So if we think about, the negative outcome, what's the probability of it, and what's the impact of it? What's the size of it? It kind of
It's
really
an excellent,
defines
by the
risk.
way, if I asked 100 people, nobody would get that close to what Merriam-Webster says, which is the possibility of loss, damage, or injury.
Yeah, yeah,
And we have that every
yeah,
day in
yeah,
everything we do. There's some degree of risk. What I think about, both as someone that used to manage a whole bunch of other people's money, as well as almost in what guides me on a daily basis, is, are there ways I can mitigate that risk? Are there ways that I can take what from the outside might appear to have a large possibility of disaster and squeeze out every single thing I can as a result?
yeah,
And then I can put risk in two buckets. I can look at risk I can mitigate, and then I can look at something I call non-compensatory risk. In other words,
right,
am I exposing things that have no benefit for me, even if they work out brilliantly well? It makes no
right.
difference in my life.
Yeah,
And that's how I
yeah,
think about
yeah.
risk, especially as a former advisor. But there's other things, in my life that from the outside I do that people might consider maybe a little too risky. I've been a pilot most of my life. I'm
Sure.
very happy if I can't see anything out the front of the airplane and
Yeah,
it's 0-0. My wife thinks I'm out of my mind.
yeah,
To me, that's safer than being out on a bright sunny day where you don't know who's going to do what. I'd rather be a blip on a radar scope and have the controller treat me the same way he's treating the United guy.
yeah,
So you mitigate risk through practice, training, or whatever it might be.
sure.
So I would submit to you that you had this vision of what was there, but your other comment about maybe not this month, but next month, 6 months, yeah, I can do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Not knowing how, but having the faith that you were going to figure it out is really, I think, demonstrates two things. Obviously, an entrepreneurial spirit, but I think that's kind of the essence of leadership. You had a
It
goal you
is.
wanted to get to, and you had to figure out how to do it. Well done.
Well, I appreciate that. And, and it's, I think not something that you read in a book or that you think of logically. I do think this is something that can be developed. I like to think of leadership as a vocation. So if you think of becoming a pilot, I think is a great example, or becoming, a musical artist, where you're playing a guitar, or, a lot of my clients, they're going to have a welder or a pipe fitter. The skills necessary to develop that capability, I do believe leadership has a lot of that essence where if you think about just what you've talked about, I teach project management classes and all kinds of things to help people develop these skills. Risk is really a function of time. And the more time you have, the more options you have. So the earlier that I potentially identify an issue, the more options that are available to me. And when most people manage risk, they think of it as managing it in the moment and as the emergency and as the response, where we teach project managers, we teach reliability engineers, we teach, these super performers to think about risk as something that you never want to be surprised by. So as long as you're aware that this option of not paying the mortgage exists, it doesn't mean that you have to be confident in never having it happen. What you have to have is as much time as possible to be either recognizing that this problem could happen or that a series of conditions or events are leading to it. Because the more options you have, the more you can kind of sell the new car and buy a used car, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that can keep me out of, foreclosure.
It's funny because in aviation, as pilots, sometimes you live on aphorisms or sayings. And one of
Yeah.
my favorites, and you just said it, was there's no problem you'll notice on the ground that's going to get better in the air. So you better figure it out first before you go up and go, well, what am I doing up here?
Yeah.
But
I
no, I,
love
I
that.
couldn't I
Love
couldn't
that.
agree more. So
Yeah.
who do you serve? Who are your clients mostly? Are you speaking to groups, speaking to individuals? What's it like to
Yeah.
engage you?
Yeah. So, with super performance, we're actually opening ourselves up to working with much smaller teams and individuals, which we've never done before. Gary, I actually don't even have a business card, if you want to believe that. And I work with some of the largest companies in the world when it comes to steel, paper, converting. They're household names that, you would really appreciate and recognize. And I've taught thousands of their very best employees how to become expert facilitators and problem solvers. We call them belts, these folks that learn what we refer to as deliberate improvement, to go out and create change, drive improvement, manage risk, and basically make things happen, which is what super performance is all about. How do you kind of create, and I don't necessarily love the analogy, but it's almost like, how do you create that special forces kind of level of knowledge, training, and skill that becomes that multiplier in any situation. And that really is who our clients have been. And never advertised, never had a website, never did a podcast. Some people have said I was the best kept secret in improvement, and decided to basically give it all away now. We wrote a book that basically takes every secret that we've held and charged for and put it in 300 pages.
Well, it's not going to cut down on demand because obviously if it's in a book, you must know something. It's just
Right.
you're an authority on something. That's
Yeah,
fascinating. It really is. So you're clearly enjoying what you're doing.
I am.
Any endpoint in sight? Anything on your list that you want to get done in this area? How do you see this in 3 to 5 years? How does it continue to grow?
Yeah, just such an amazing opportunity that I've been given. I've won the life lottery with having, the opportunities I've had, the clients that I've been able to work for, and, kind of the improvement we've been able to create. And some of the things that have been most satisfying have been the individual stories. Somebody who was working a job as a supervisor in customer service that participated in one of our training programs and then was able to get a position to become kind of full time in driving change and improvement in their company, and then became a very senior manager in that organization. That opportunity that we created, they did, but we kind of opened that door, is really what has been, my greatest achievements, what I feel most proud of. And there's a whole litany of those kinds of stories. So This second act of my career is to help those individuals out there, the folks that may not have been able to be a part of a really big company and kind of afford a very expensive training class. We want to help them, and that also includes nonprofits. Very
Hmm.
strongly believe that the resources that very, very large companies have that help them be very large and very profitable are not often available to a lot of nonprofit organizations. And donating our talent, especially when it comes to these kinds of skills, I think can, be in some cases better than our money because it's really
Yeah.
a multiplier.
So who else, when you use the plural, who else do you work with in your company? What's your company look like?
Yeah, it really kind of an interesting group. So we have a couple of folks that I work with that are like me in the sense that we directly engage with training and teaching. I've got a lot of folks that help us with content. So My Blended Learning is a corporate training kind of resource at its core in terms of developing skills. And we think of training as a vocation versus like a university. It's all about practical application. So I've got some graphic artists and folks that are really good with helping us with communication. And then I actually have a technical part of the company. I've got a fantastic partner. A shout out to Josh Barron, my business partner, who is a brilliant technologist. And we have developed some technologies around the delivery of training, the delivery of materials that are so unique. Even these large companies don't have them internally. And it allows us to be able to do things at a speed and a level of quality that you can't buy in the marketplace because they're all kind of in-house developed solutions that help us be successful. And that's also all part of this plan to really open those things up to smaller organizations that may not have been able to afford them and help the technology we use in learning and training as well as the content become much more widely available.
That sounds wonderful. That's certainly needed and it's a business that will never go out of style. So how do
Well, I
people
hope not.
find you if they want to retain you or they want to learn more? Where do we find you?
Yeah, my company is myblendedlearning.com, and certainly you can find our website there. And we do have a page, an author page of georgepesansky.com. And then, of course, on LinkedIn, Deliberate Improvement, as well as Superperformance with a Z on X, Twitter. Happy to connect with folks in any of those places. You can reach out, um, subscribe to our Deliberate Minute newsletter, as well as reach out for engagements or opportunities.
Sounds great. George, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thank you, Gary. Really a pleasure.
Our guest today has been George Pesansky, myblendedlearning.com. Book coming out in September, I assume available on Amazon or your favorite bookseller, called My Superperformance. Uh, Check him out. He's got a lot to say that makes a great deal of sense. Thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to If the Public Only Knew. I'm your host, Gary Cinderbrand. Hopefully we'll see you on the next podcast. Be well. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to If the Public Only Knew. Don't forget to follow the show and share it with anyone who's ready for the real raw stories behind the business successes. Join Gary next time for another powerful conversation that will leave you inspired and ready to take action.